America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. My name is Jordan Bruno, and I'm the Vice President at Job Creators Network.
And I'm Alfredo Ortiz, CEO of Job Creators Network.
Please subscribe at salempodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Today, we're joined by Brandon Dente. Brandon is a health advisor at Monument Health Plans, where he specializes in the provision of health plans to a diverse clientele, including families, self-employed workers, and small businesses. His team collectively has over 3 decades of experience assisting Americans in finding well-suited health plans tailored to their unique requirements. Brandon, welcome to Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate being here.
Awesome. Brandon, maybe you can just kick things off by telling our audience and listeners a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Monument Health Plans.
So my name is Brandon Dente. I've been in the financial space for the past 19 years. At Monument Health, we were small business owners ourselves, and we realized there was a big, void gap in health coverage options for primarily the self-employed and small business owners. So we want to kind of hone in and target on that and kind of basically get the awareness, because a lot of people, they first go to look at group plans, which is, a lot of times you have problems with participation levels, and they don't do medical underwriting. So if you have, let's say, an employee that spouse has, a pre-existing condition as far as cancer, it kind of drives the rates up. And then we also have, the downfall of Obamacare marketplace. It also has its purpose because, accepts everybody. So if you have, cancer, diabetes, they have to accept you. It's kind of a guaranteed issue. What that does, though, is if you're not in a low income tax bracket and not get a subsidy, it drives the cost up. And so you have, high deductibles and high monthly premiums. And so we wanted to kind of come in and kind of, rescue a lot of the business owners.
So, Brandon, if you could talk to us a little bit about the, kind of different coverage and choices that you guys actually are providing your customers, and maybe a couple of some great examples. I mean, obviously taking names and stuff like that out, but maybe like a case study that, really just blows people away.
Yeah, so let's maybe look at truck drivers. Truck drivers, they're usually owner operators, obviously self-employed. They're a lot of times they're interstate drivers where they might be in one state one day, then another state the next day. 95% of what's going to be on Obamacare is going to be your EPO or HMO. There are some markets that offer PPOs, but 95% of the time they don't. And so they're going to need something that's portable. So we offer all PPO plans, so it's nationwide, which is perfect for a truck driver because our plans are nationwide. And so we go in and a lot of times, even people with pre-existing conditions, we can help those people. But if people are healthy, we can kind of minimize the risk for insurance companies. We do medical underwriting, so we kind of get a snapshot of their health history. And if they're low risk, we can offer a lot stronger, a lot more affordable coverage.
Yeah, it makes sense. What other unique benefits or attributes do your plans have that might attract some of our small business listeners?
Yeah, so it comes down to a lot too about the affordability. So going back to the medical underwriting, let's say, for example, or auto insurance, you have, if you're less risk and you don't have, tickets, claims, DUIs, accidents, you can kind of get better, lower rates of the auto insurance. And we kind of do the same thing with health insurance. So, where you're looking at, most insurance, you're paying the same price across the board. So by doing that and minimizing that risk, we can offer, programs as low as, zero deductibles. So instead of having a high deductible plan, now you're getting first dollar coverage, where when you use your insurance, even zero copays. So when you go see the doctor, instead of paying, copays, or in a lot of these catastrophic plans with Obamacare, everything goes towards deductible. So we actually have, programs where right off the bat, they're getting that first dollar coverage.
When Obamacare was launched, we heard that was kind of the be all end all of health insurance and affordability and stuff like that. Obviously, I don't think it's fallen short of that. But can you give us kind of like a little bit of a comparison of how really Obamacare fails, the American public, and how a policy like yours or, products like yours actually offsets what really Obamacare has failed us all on?
I mean, it is struggling. The main thing is going to be cost of care. When you have everybody's accepted, you have people that are healthy and people who aren't healthy, everybody's paying the same price. Let's say someone needs a heart surgery next month and they have a qualifying event, they can jump on Obamacare plan, even though they already have it scheduled, and jump on, and now Obamacare is paying that. So it's driving the cost up for all of us.
Wow.
And so that's why we like what we do, because we're trying to hone in and basically get you rewarded for being healthy. So someone that's healthy should not be paying the same price as someone that has cancer.
Brandon, Job Careers Network launched our healthcare reform policy platform. It's called Healthcare for You. And ultimately what we're trying to do with that is clear the exam room of the bureaucrats, the countless middle players, and then also the government officials to offer specialized, personalized care rather than kind of the one size fits all that seems to be mandated by both big health and big government. Does that jive with the product that you're offering?
I mean, that ties in exactly what we're trying to do. The problem is insurance isn't one size fits all. And so we try to kind of tailor and customize the plan and for what their needs are. People have different medications, different needs, different, they want to keep costs down or this and that. They have a lot of, Obamacare HMOs, the providers like Nevada, for example. Most providers in Nevada, especially in Las Vegas areas, they don't even accept most of the HMO networks. Not in that, it's just people don't realize how bad HMOs are as far as, you have a gatekeeper. So if you want to go see let's say you're a dermatologist, you want to see a specialist, it's a skin condition. They make you go to see your PCP, your primary care physician, and get a referral to see that dermatologist. And a lot of times, you're waiting sometimes, 6-8 months. We have cancer. I have cancer clients that they have cancer, they're dying, and they're making them wait 8-9 months to go see the specialist. I mean, it really is, causing a lot of problems. So I love what you guys are doing. I definitely jive with that 100%.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, it's something that we spent a good amount of time on developing, and pretty proud of that. We got to keep on pushing it, though, right? So we need broader awareness of an alternative to Obamacare, because our fear is that eventually we are going to get to just a social, kind of a socialist healthcare system in this country, which I don't think any one of us want, right? And so now, and it's interesting, over the years, it looks like the uninsured, the percentage of people uninsured really has continued to rise, which is kind of fascinating. Is it really just a cost issue, or is it because people are paying in and then they have these huge deductibles, or what is it?
I mean, you just touched based on it, Alfredo. A lot of it's awareness too, but it is the cost. Cost is rising, but it's primarily the awareness, because a lot of times people, they'll jump on Obamacare. That's all they think that's out there, because for so many years it was kind of forced that way,
right?
And they get on there, they're not getting subsidized premiums, and they're seeing how expensive it is and how high the deductibles are. It's like, why am I paying $2,000 a month for a $15,000 deductible? If something happens, I have to pay another $15,000. We're like, you know what? I'm just going to self-insure. And so that's why we're seeing the increase, because the costs go up. And now we're getting, Biden approved during COVID, the American Rescue Act, which, severely increased the availability of subsidies. And now that's expiring. So a lot of these families that could afford health coverage, through that expansion, is going to be eliminated, and now they're not going to be able to afford it either. So I mean, it's going to increase that number.
Hopefully, a lot of new business for you then, with these people coming off the Obamacare.
Yes.
Brandon, I just checked the latest numbers. Kaiser Family Foundation estimates that the average employer-sponsored plan, which is how most non-elderly Americans get their insurance, the average annual premium is $24,500. That's a 50% increase over the last 10 years. And that's the price of a Toyota Corolla. So it's no wonder that when Alfredo and I talk to our small businesses on Main Street, one of the biggest things we hear about is the cost of insuring their healthcare. A lot of small businesses are dropping coverage altogether. If you go to a dry cleaner that might have 15 years ago offered it for their 17 employees, now they don't offer it anymore. But the ones that still have to under Obamacare regulations, or just because most small businesses do want to do right by their employees, are just finding this is really taking a huge hit to their profit margin. Besides just coming to you and coming to your website, What would you say to some of these small business owners who are just getting crushed by these costs?
See, it's difficult too, because a lot of times these group plans, you have to worry about participation levels. If you're offering a health coverage package and it's, for their family, they don't want to, take out, $500 a week in their paycheck. They decide to decline the coverage. It affects the whole group if they'll get coverage. Then you have, where there's not medical underwriting. And this is, I'm kind of tying into what we do. You're accepting everybody. So it doesn't matter if someone has, like I was saying earlier about your spouse having cancer, that drives the cost up for the whole group, and it makes it not affordable. It comes down to just cost of care is being increased and utilization costs.
As you guys are expanding and stuff like that, I mean, what's been the biggest challenge for you guys as you're expanding, from state to state? I mean, I can't imagine that, the federal government's too excited about a program like yours because it's taken away from people who are doing Obamacare, which I think is their ultimate goal is to put everybody, again, on a public system of healthcare. So I'd love to know what your challenges are, or maybe even what JCN can do to help you fight those challenges. Because again, we want to keep pushing the kind of policies that we promoted in our program as well.
Yeah, so there was a lot of challenges with when Obamacare came out. So before Obamacare, it was all private. It was, all the big carriers, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, Anthem, Humana, they would do medical underwriting. Now when Obamacare came out, they had to all, basically jump on the bandwagon and had to accept everybody, and that's really what keeps increasing the cost. And so by doing private, that way we can kind of step away from that, and then we can kind of just target the healthy people, and that's gonna keep the cost down for them, and also the insurance companies, minimizing the risk at the same time.
Got it. And just to follow up on what Alfredo's question, can you maybe describe some of the other regulatory or policy hurdles you're facing from either the federal or state level?
There's some changes happening this year. I think in September, all short-term plans. So if kind of some knowledge real quick on short-term plans. Short-term plans were created for someone, let's say, that lost a job and their new job they just started. They don't offer benefits for 2 months, so they have their little 2-month gap. They need some coverage, and a lot of the insurance brokers out there, they're selling short-term plans, and they're not really informing the customer, the consumer, that's a short-term plan. They think it's this awesome, great, full coverage, long-term plan. But what happens is usually they're only, like, let's say maybe the max is 12 months. So if something happens within that 12 months, it's what's called conditionally renewable. It's up to the insurance company to renew the insurance for another 12 months. And they don't know this. So let's say someone, I actually had a client, this was a couple summers ago, felt so bad for her because she was on one of these short-term plans, had no idea, developed cancer. They covered her chemo for a few months, and they kicked her off in June. Now, Obamacare, they don't recognize that as a qualifying event. So through a marketplace, you have open enrollment, usually November to January, unless you have a special enrollment period. So if you've just got, just had a change in your household size, if you got divorced, if you lost coverage through a job, then they give you a special enrollment period where you can jump on an Obamacare plan. Well, they don't recognize short-term plans as full coverage. And so this lady, my client, I couldn't get her on a private plan at this point because now she's not healthy, and I couldn't get her an Obamacare plan. So she had no coverage until January. So what's happening in September? They just passed where the short-term plans are only going to be for 3 months, and it's going to be primarily for people what it should be, and just be for short-term.
Is that a little bit like? I remember a few of my friends actually, when they switch jobs, they go on Cobra.
Yeah, it's a little different. Yeah. So Cobra, federal mandate, when you have an employer-sponsored plan, if you're laid off or quit, they have to offer the same benefits for 18 months. Now, they're not going to be paying for it because you're not a valued asset for the company anymore.
Right.
So now that plan that let's say the employee contributions were $500 a month, and the employer is paying $1,000 a month. Now you're paying the full thing. So now you're paying $1,500 a month. So Cobra, it's the only time it really makes sense and works if you met your deductible for the year, and let's say you have upcoming surgery, then it makes sense to pay the additional premium. But it's so pricey, expensive, it doesn't really make sense for most people. So it's a little different.
Okay.
Interesting. Hey, so Brandon, like in my analysis of the healthcare system, one of the things that really sticks out to me as such a wild attribute is the lack of price transparency. So just to bring it home, a few weeks ago, one of my kids woke up really bad ear infection, 3 a.m. just holding the ear. Every parent's gone through this. In my head, I'm like, okay, should I go to the emergency room now? Or do I wait? Now, obviously, we'll all do what's best for a kid. And if they really need to go to the emergency room, we're going to go and we're going to pay whatever it is. But in this scenario, I'm like, boy, I'd really like to know what the delta is on the emergency room cost versus taking them to urgent care, being the first one there in the morning at 8:30 when it opens. Um, and then I also, from the more macro level, I hear from the small business owners we talk to when they have their 62-year-old employee need a knee replacement, and they don't know whether the hospital down the street or they could fly them to Oklahoma to a surgical center and see what the difference in price is there. Can you talk a little bit about what your analysis is of the lack of price transparency and whether that's something that you offer to your clients through your plans?
Yeah, so our plans do have that. Not a lot of plans do. But I think a bigger problem too right now, and I've been seeing the last couple of years, is a lot of providers are taking advantage of insurance companies. And I saw one of my clients had just, had a $20,000 bill for dehydration. They had to go to the emergency room, and they had a miscellaneous charge for like $6,000. So most insurance companies, if you're in network, they have a pre-negotiated rate or contracted rate. But the problem is this isn't available to public or to the user. So you might go to one provider, it might be this price. You go to a different provider with the same insurance, but now you go to a different provider and it's a different price. So I would love to see some regulation on that, as far as having that be really open to everybody, as far as having true costs. If I'm going to do this, it costs this. If I do this, it's going to cost this. And it's also too awareness of the plan too. If you understand your kind of your plan limitations and exclusions, and what's in network, what's out of network, a lot of that can be eliminated as well.
So, Brian, from your perspective, obviously we really focus on small businesses, and small businesses are the ones that are most, I think, hurt by the current plans that are out there, and the cost of it. I mean, I've got several friends that are just begging me to help them, find something, with my contacts and stuff like that, because their rates are going up 30, 40, 50%, almost year over year. In your opinion, like, why don't just small businesses stop offering that and let everybody go on Obamacare?
Yeah, it's also it's about retaining employees too. I mean, you want to have that added value to retain employees, especially with growth. But it's also going back to awareness. There is other options. We talked about before about work plans, how they're going to be increased like this, and it's because of cost of care going up. But we can minimize the exposure of the insurance company by doing medical underwriting. So it is an individual basis. So there's also programs called the ICRA or CUSERA, where employers can actually let their employees choose their own insurance. They can still do contributions. They can say, we're gonna has to be the same for all full-time employees. They can't do one thing for this employee and another for another. But they can, whatever their contributions are, it can be a fixed percentage or a fixed amount. They can choose. Let's say I'm going to pick an Obamacare plan. That's what the employee wants to do, and the employee can still contribute to that plan, or they can come, to a private plan if they're healthy and have it more affordable for the employee, and it also saves money for the employer as well.
Okay, no, that makes sense from a retention standpoint too, and attracting employees. I mean, I guess the hardest part with small businesses is that they're competing with large companies, right?
Exactly.
For
They
labor.
are offering that.
Yeah, they're all self-insured.
That's the struggle, though, is that it's so expensive, and especially in smaller groups, because you're not getting a discount of having 50 more employees. So the cost really for it's expensive to offer. Let's say you have 6 employees, it's going to be pretty pricey for the employee and for the employer. Typically, when we come in and help small businesses, we're saving about 30%.
Wow,
that's
huge.
That's a huge number for a lot of these small businesses.
Brendan, I'm based in Western Michigan here, and a lot of the self-employed people I talk to are again so fed up. They're just at a loss. Exactly what Alfredo said. I've noticed a lot of them turning to these Christian sharing ministry plans. Now I've heard a lot of different things on these, even from within my political ecosphere that I listen to. I've heard pros and cons. What are your perspective on these, and how do your plans differ?
First off, it's not real health insurance. I mean, the states don't recognize it as health insurance, not health coverage. It's they. I've had clients on those plans that got sent to collections because a lot of times you have to pay it first. So let's say you have a $20,000 bill, you're expected to pay that bill first and wait for them to process to reimburse you sometimes 6, 12, 18 months down the road. Now you're sent to collection. It keeps the people are attracted to them because of the price, because they go on Obamacare and they're not getting a subsidy and they realize how expensive it is. They see these high deductibles and they look at these they're called health share. And they look at a health share, the cost is lower. So it's like, oh, let's jump on this. But then until they have a claim, then they realize maybe that wasn't such a good idea. I definitely don't recommend health share because it's not real health insurance.
Okay. That tracks with what I've heard.
Yeah.
And basically you are the insurance company. You're the one making the calls every day.
Right.
But you have to process the claims basically. It's not fun.
One of the things that still boggles my mind is, why the government has put up roadblocks against some things that do make it easier for small businesses. I'm not sure if you remember this, but a few years back under the Trump administration, there was something that the Labor Secretary, Alex Acosta, was trying to put out there. It was called Association Health Plans, which basically benefited small businesses. Why do you think there's just so many roadblocks and so many people stopping things that are actually that try to help our small businesses in this regard?
I mean, everything the government does, and even going to the post office, they fail. You definitely don't want to tackle health insurance.
Well, that's true.
And it really is, and I think it's about control. I mean, my personal opinion, I think that the Obamacare ACA health exchanges are failing, and they're desperate, and they're just kind of grabbing at straws. But the plans we offer are association based, so that's one way we can offer. So we have a lot of benefits for small business owners. But we put them in a large association, and that's another reason why we can kind of offer lower rates.
So can you help me and help the people who are listening understand kind of what the process? So let's say, I'm a hardware store, local hardware store. I have 15 employees. My healthcare policy has been going up 50% every year. I said enough is enough. How would I seek you guys out, or what would be the process for me to sign up with you guys?
We'll leave the website at the end, whatever. Just kind of tell you the process though. So basically, like we were talking about earlier, it's not a one size fits all. So we're going to sit down and kind of assess the needs of the small business owner. We could find out if they have risk factors as far as if they have employees that aren't healthy, that have pre-existing conditions. Some employees might have expensive medications. So a lot of times these medications, when they have, they might be $3,000-$5,000 a month. Some of our plans, they have what's called a manufacturer copay card that our plans qualify for that makes that $5,000 medication only $30. And sometimes that's not the case. And so we have to kind of go a different direction. So every situation is different, but what we're going to do is we're going to assess situation and look at all options. So we're not trying to just push one thing. Everybody's different. So we're going to shop group plans. We'll shop going private. A lot of times we might put a smaller section of the company on a group plan, and then maybe the healthy ones on private plans. So we'll kind of situation and kind of, identify their needs and kind of go from there.
Oh, that's interesting. So you could really segregate the employee base even, between like a group plan, like you said, or a private plan.
Yes. And utilizing the QSERA at ICRAs, we can do that. Or basically, what I was telling you before is we're basically letting it up to the employee to make a decision on what health plan by still allowing the employer to still contribute and also have the tax savings.
Your care, your choice, right?
Yeah.
All right, so Brandon, how can our listeners and viewers learn more about you and Monument Health Plans?
Yeah, so basically you go to mainstreetmattershealth.com/monument. One of our agents, will get in touch with you. We kind of do an assessment. We do a free assessment. Even if you have, let's say you think you have the best possible plan out there, it's still kind of good to know where you're at, where you stand in the marketplace. Even if you have an employer-sponsored plan, even if you're self-employed, have a small business, let's say you're on your spouse's plan, they offer health insurance. A lot of times on employer-sponsored options or plans, it's really affordable for the employee. But then when you add spouse and dependents, it kind of gets expensive. So a lot of times what we'll recommend, is we'll keep the employee on the employer sponsor plan, and then we'll break up the rest of the family and put them on a private plan and save them money.
And Brandon, really quickly, are you available in all states then, or is it limited to certain states?
We're in about 33 states. We list on the website. Now the plans are nationwide, so it has to be originated in one of those 33 states.
Okay.
But the plans do work nationwide.
Does Georgia happen to be one of those?
Georgia definitely is. It's one of our biggest
Great,
states.
because I'm going to then refer
And
you
Michigan.
as soon as we're
Great.
done. I'm going to send your information to my friend who's dying from healthcare costs in her business.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today on Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. And thank you to all of you for taking the time to listen. Main Street Matters is part of the Salem Podcast Network, and new episodes debut every Wednesday and Friday. Please subscribe at salempodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back soon with another episode. Goodbye for now.